we seeing the two best teams in baseball play in New York right now?
That is exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing the kings of New York on both sides of town. In the Bronx, you got the Yankees, and Queens, you got the Mets, and these two teams are the best two teams in each league. The Yankees are the best team in the American League. The Yankees are the best team in baseball. The Mets, on the opposite end, have the most wins in the National League. It is truly incredible what we are seeing. To this point in the year, 65 games into the year, both teams have never had a winning percentage over 600. This is the first year it has ever happened. The Mets are 44-24, and the Yankees are 49-17. There has never been a season where this has happened. It's special. It truly is. If you're in New York, you're in the heart of baseball right now, and it's really cool to see. We could potentially be heading to a Subway Series, and I know it's early, and I'm not going to predict that. I'll stick with my preseason predictions to this point. But as of right now, these two teams are on a collision course. Both teams are doing it differently as well. So let's talk about the Mets first and foremost, because I've been on record a good bit this year saying that the Mets aren't going to Met, and you know, for those that don't know what that means, it's a saying over the last few years where the Mets have had a talented team, they end up in first place for a while, and then they just all fall apart. Think San Diego Padres last year, second half collapse. That's kind of the Mets are going to Met. But this year, I've been saying that's not going to happen. This team is built differently. And if there was ever a time for it to happen, it was over the course of the last 2 weeks, since the start of June. The Mets' two of the best pitchers on the planet, Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer, go down. They're not on the team. They're injured. They're not pitching. That's the heart and soul of that pitching staff. They're gone. So then you have to look to others to pick it up. And the others have been picking it up. But look at the month of June. This is what I want to talk about. Because what happened here? Well, the Mets had a double-digit lead in the NL East. They had a 10.5 game lead in the NL East. The Atlanta Braves, and this is what's happened in the past, the Mets will have a lead, and then something will happen, or their players won't play great, the Braves will start playing better. Boom, next thing you know, Braves are in the lead. Well, what happened again? The Atlanta Braves go on and rattle off 14 wins in a row in an easier stretch of their schedule, but obviously it's not easy to win 14 in a row. They did just that. The Mets were in the midst of a brutal part of their schedule. They had to play the Dodgers. This is on the road. Dodgers, Padres, Angels, and then the Brewers. Okay? Very tough stretch. I know the Angels haven't been playing great baseball, but a little better of late. But they're a good baseball team with a lot of superstars. And those other teams, Dodgers and Padres, the other two best teams in the National League. The Mets ended up going 7-6 on that stretch. 7-6. That's pretty good in a stretch like that. This tweet, Braves complete a stretch today of 29 consecutive games against teams that were below 500 at the time of the matchup. Philly has since moved over 500. They are 20-8 in that stretch, yet gained just one game on the Mets in the NL East race in that period. And that, my friends, is my point. In the past, the Braves would go on that stretch, as we've seen before. The Mets would go in the opposite direction. Next thing you know, you're looking at the NL East, and there's a tie atop the NL East. Well, not anymore. The Mets go on that tough stretch and go over 500, which is all you can ask. The Braves did what they needed to do, better than what they needed to do in that stretch. But now, guess what? Here we sit, and the Braves are still 5.5 games now behind the Mets. They closed that gap. They got it to 4 from 10.5. But the Mets just kept doing what they're doing and kept doing what they know they can do, and that's win ball games. This Mets team is different this year. Even without those two guys, they are still able to do this. The recipe for success for good baseball teams is going 500, maybe a little bit better on really tough stretches, and beating the teams you should. If you do that, you're going to end up in a good position. The Braves went on an easier stretch in their schedule, and they took advantage of it. The Mets went through a really hard stretch, and they played it over 500, and that's why I'm a believer in this team. in the New York Mets. I'm a believer in both of these teams, but I am sticking with the fact that I've been saying for a little while now that I think the Mets are going to win the NL East because I think they are incapable of falling apart. And that could come back to haunt me. That could come back to bite me. But I just think the way that they are built makes them incapable of doing that. And if they were going to, they would have done it already. Without their two best pitchers, without some other guys, and then they go on a tough stretch, well, guess what? They still played pretty well. I like what the New York Mets are doing. On the other side of town, in the Bronx, the Yankees are doing it in a different way. The Yankees are just dominating everybody. They're 49-17. And I was one of the first, might I add, on the bandwagon. I don't want to say bandwagon because that insinuates that I'm like a massive fan. I'm just a fan of the game of baseball. But I was one of the first this year to say, this New York Yankees team is the real deal. Watch out. And I remember saying that a while ago, and the response was, well, who have the Yankees played? The Yankees haven't played anybody. Well, guess what? They go into Toronto, a place that's tough to play, against a really good baseball team that I have actually winning the AL East. I did have them winning the AL East. I have them in the World Series. The Blue Jays team is very talented. The Yankees went in there and won 2 out of 3 games. Lost the Sunday game in a nail-biter, still put up 9 runs. This Yankees team is so unbelievably good. They are beating up on people they should beat, and they are beating up on people that are also really good. They are the best team in the game of baseball right now. Absolutely hands down. Now, I do have a concern, and I want to call this out. I want to call out Aaron Boone here. I'm a little disappointed. You have this team that's the best in baseball, and everything is rolling. You've even had some injuries come your way, and they've dealt with the adversity and been even better. Clay Holmes has stepped in as the closer of this team and been perfect. He can't be any better. He's in the midst of 29 straight appearances where he hasn't allowed a run, breaking the club record set by Mariano Rivera in 1999. That guy's pretty good, I'd say. He can't be any better. And he's in this closer role for the New York Yankees, and he's been doing it so well. And this happened when Aroldis Chapman went down. Now, Aroldis Chapman wasn't doing great when he did get hurt. Before he got hurt, he wasn't doing great. But he's been the closer for the New York Yankees for years, and he's been a fantastic closer in his career. But of late, I don't think it's been quite as dominant. There's certainly some control issues. There's been runs given up right before he went down. The other day, when asked about Aroldis Chapman coming back, Aaron Boone said, when he comes back, he will be the closer, and Clay Holmes will be pitching in high-leverage situations where we need him throughout the game. He'll be closing some games, too. I am so disappointed in this decision. Why would you do that? Just because Chapman's been the guy in the past and because he's been good in his career? I don't understand this. Clay Holmes has been the best closer in the game of baseball since he stepped into that role. Josh Hader was there. He gave up a couple runs the other day. His ERA is still minuscule. But guess what? Clay Holmes has been perfect. He's in the midst of the longest scoreless stretch in the history of the Yankees. Why can't we commit to him being the closer of the team? Why mess with what you have going on? I don't understand it. Listen to these splits between the two. When the two teams, when they both come into a game and it's tied, okay? In a tie game, Clay Holmes has pitched 6 innings, a 1.5 ERA. 2 total bases allowed. Aroldis Chapman, an inning and 2/3, a 10.8 ERA. That's in a tie game. When the Yankees are leading, Clay Holmes has pitched 23 and 2/3 innings, a 0 ERA, 26 Ks to 3 walks, 11 for 11 in save opportunities. Aroldis Chapman, 12 innings, a 2.25, also not bad. 12 Ks to 7 walks, 9 of 9. Clay Holmes has earned this job. That's all I have to say about that. I hope it doesn't mess up the Yankees' mojo because what they've been doing is historic, and this is a celebratory segment because the New York Yankees have been the best team in baseball, hands down. This is the best start to a season that they've ever had. This is the best start to the season that the Yankees and Mets combined have ever had, and there hasn't ever been, to this point, more exciting baseball being played in the state of New York.
Thanks for watching. If you love flipping bats, swinging 3-0, or just talking ball, join us. Call us at 213-537-9339 with your questions. We have a weekly guest, and we have a lot of fun, so hit that subscribe button.